I've been covering OnePlus for literally 8 years. I had to do the math on that twice because I was like, there's no way that it's been that long, but here we are. Yes, it's been 8 years since the launch of the original OnePlus One that completely changed the smartphone game, in my opinion, at the time. Now, fast forward to today, things are a little bit different. No longer is OnePlus the brand that delivers a premium phone at a budget price, but more so a normal phone at a premium price. But unfortunately, a lot of people think that the OnePlus 10 Pro is an absolute flop. So here's the deal. Back a few months ago, the OnePlus 10 Pro launched overseas, but we need to make a very clear distinction here. This OnePlus 10 Pro is very different from the one that we saw launch internationally back in January. So I should clarify, it's mostly the same device, but only on a hardware level. You see, the software experience on the first iteration of the OnePlus 10 Pro is nowhere near the same as this one, and that changes literally everything. And a lot of press and YouTube people and stuff imported it from overseas and reviewed it and were like, man, this is absolutely terrible. What is OnePlus doing? Well, I'm happy to say that that experience is not this experience. As most people can understand, a software experience and a user experience can literally make or break a device that comes out. And this guy right here, fortunately, runs Oxygen OS, but the initial launch of the OnePlus 10 Pro came with Color OS, which is far less favorable. That being said, as somebody that has the OnePlus 10 Pro in his hands right now, this phone doesn't suck, but it's also nothing special. Let me elaborate. This is a smartphone that has what you need and it does what you need it to do, and that's pretty much been OnePlus's like motto. You know, they just give you what you need and they slap it in a pretty package at a good price. But we need to get this out of the way right now. The OnePlus 10 Pro is $899, and yes, it's cheaper than its predecessor, which is amazingly great, but OnePlus has built a global brand and is now making flagship smartphones. That means essentially they are at the same level of the Samsungs and the Googles of the world. But this is the same price, right? And do you think most normal people out there are gonna choose a OnePlus over a Pixel or a Galaxy device? I just think that having flagship prices for a lesser known brand while offering the same thing that everything else does isn't always enough. The design here is great though, and it looks like a nice phone. I mean, I do like the smooth but etched look on the back glass here, and the camera module, it's a bit much, but we'll get into the camera a little bit later. The display here is 6.7 inches, it's a QHD plus resolution at 120 Hertz, and I mean, that's kind of expected these days, right? But the thing that gets me the most is some of the like marketing terms and things that they're throwing at this phone, right? Like for example, this has some enhanced upscaling abilities for videos that have a lower resolution than 720p. Let me actually read you a little blurb here. The OnePlus 10 Pro lets you take advantage of its 6.7-inch QHD plus display even when you are watching videos with a lower resolution than 720p, thanks to a feature called Super Video Resolution. So essentially what this does is it allows you to upscale video more cleanly, but I feel like, are we inventing solutions to problems that never existed? Like, come on, most people spend 2 hours a day watching 480p TikTok videos without complaining. Like, are we really making that big of a difference here in a viewing experience? Is this really that important? We're spending all this money on like throwing in these marketing things and these features and stuff when really, I feel like we could have just taken that, whatever that chunk costed, and just cut it off the top, right? And give us a cheaper smartphone, because that would be more important. I mean, that's honestly my problem with a lot of smartphones today, is that they're just throwing things in there so they can justify a higher price. At least that's just my opinion on it. But honestly, we've been at the pinnacle of like smartphone innovation for quite some time now, and the only thing that companies can think to do is throw little quirky features in here or there, sprinkle some all around, just so that we feel like we're getting our money's worth. Of course, we have the fingerprint sensors and the face unlock and the super fast charging and the USB Type-C port. All of those things are here. We're not knocking any of that, but I mean, I expect all of those things. So here's the deal. Inside we have a Qualcomm Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 processor. We have 8 gigabytes of RAM, 128 gigabytes of storage. I mean, essentially this is the 2022 cocktail of a smartphone inside of here, right? Like this is essentially what we get in all 2022 Android smartphones. But moving along here, let's talk about the camera, because there's obviously a lot going on the back here. We have a triple camera setup. There is a kind of a ring light looking flash on the back. And if there's one place that the OnePlus 10 Pro is going to really shine or bank on shining in, it's with the camera. Now we have a 48 megapixel shooter on the back, along with an 8 megapixel telephoto lens, both with 10-bit color capabilities, which is great. But don't forget, we also do have an ultra wide lens on here, and they have some features built in like the Hasselblad Pro mode, which allows you to shoot 12-bit raw photos. And you know what? All these things are great, but they mean absolutely nothing if people aren't using them. And I'm not talking about all of the super techie people out there that are going to try each feature once and be happy with it. I mean, really, like how many of you really have business taking 12-bit raw photos out there? Like, not a lot of people. I mean, far less people than the probably bulk of those who might end up with this phone. So essentially my thing is, let's cut out the marketing jargon and just give us a good phone with a good camera and good battery life, and you know, make it look kind of unique, right? Put a good spin on it, slap a good price on it, and you've sold everybody. So as I mentioned, we have Oxygen OS on here, obviously much better than Color OS, which was the main problem that people had when reviewing the other version of the smartphone, and everything is smooth. But would you expect any less with the specifications that are inside of here? This has the latest and greatest that every smartphone has this year. If your software isn't smooth, in this day and age with the specs that we have, something is wrong, very, very wrong. So here's the thing, I'm not going into every single bell and whistle with this smartphone, but everything that it does good, you know? It definitely holds its own in the smartphone world, but with the price point and the fact that it does consist of most everything that you can find in other smartphones that are cheaper or at the same price, is it enough? That's the main question here. And does OnePlus have the brand recognition now to compete with the Samsungs and the Googles of the world? The battery seems to last a day, at least in my experience. The camera's great, it's got a clean display, the software is smooth. Like, it checks all the boxes that we would expect a smartphone in 2022 to check. But isn't that what we want from a smartphone? Like, this is the bare minimum, doing everything that everybody else does. So it comes down to this. Where are your loyalties? OnePlus has a huge loyal fan base that I believe will buy up most of the things that they make. But when every smartphone maker can do pretty much the same things at roughly the same price, what makes you choose one over the other? You tell me.